more sequences. Now, we looked at arithmetic sequences last year. It was quite a long time ago, so I thought it might be best if we had a quick recap of what an arithmetic sequence was, and then move on to geometric sequences, because geometrics are a little bit more complicated. So when we were looking at arithmetic sequences, we were looking at things like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So I want you to think about what the differences are in those terms there, and then have a look at these three equations. These are equations that you used. They are also equations that you get in your data booklet, that you'll get in the exam. So you don't need to memorise them, but you do need to remember how to use them. So I want you to have a look at them and see if you can recall what they were for. These first terms here obviously are going to be particularly useful in working that out, and I want you to see if you can remember what U, N, Sn and D stand for. Now U, N and D are going to be particularly important for this lesson, and Sn we're going to get onto either later in the week, next week, or possibly after Christmas. We'll see how we get on. Okay, so pause the video here, and I'd like you to write down if you can remember what U, N, Sn and D stand for. Okay, so U stands for the value of the term. So for example, in the sequence 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 2 would be U1, 4 would be U2, and so on. So U stands for the value of the number in the number in the sequence. N is the term number. So again, in the sequence 2, 4, 6, 8, term number 1 would be 2. Term number 2 would be 4. Term number 3 would be 6. So in this case, when n equals 1, U equals 2. When n equals 2, U equals 4. N. So this is the value of the term at any term number. So I could say, what is the 50th term? And this would become U50. And then I'm just going to skip Sn quickly and go on to D. D is the common difference. So again, in the sequence 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, the common difference is the number that you need to add to go from one term to the next. So to get from 2 to 4, you add 2. 4 to 6, add 2. 6 to 8, add 2. So D, in this case, is 2. So looking at this first sequence here, we've got UN. So that's any term number. The value of any term number is equal to U1, the value of the first term, plus n minus 1, so that's going to be whatever our n is, whatever term number we're looking at, minus 1, multiplied by D, the common difference. We're going to have a little bit more practice, or quite a lot more practice, at using this particular sequence today. Sn is the sum of all of the values of the terms up until term n. So if I said find the sum of all the values up until term 50, this would become S50, and we could use one of these two equations here to calculate the sum of all of those values up till term 50. And we're going to look at that in a bit more detail later on. So it's really this first equation here that's going to be the most important one today. So first of all, I just want to start by practicing finding D, the common difference. So we can always find D by subtracting one term from the following term. So here I could subtract this term from this term, or I could subtract this term from this term. And that will give me D. So give it a go now and find D for these 4 sequences. Pause the video, see what you can do. Okay, so for sequence 1, if I do 4 minus 2, I get 2. 6 minus 4, I get 2. 8 minus 6, I get 2. So the common difference here is 2. Sequence 2, 3.5 minus 3 gives me 0.5. 4 minus 3.5 gives me 0.5. So for all of these here, the common difference is 0.5. Negative numbers. So if I have minus 2 minus 1, I get minus 3. Minus 5 minus minus 2, because there's 2 negatives here, it ends up being a plus, so it ends up being minus 5 plus 2, again gives me minus 3. So the common difference here, minus 3. And then we've got minus 5.1 minus minus 5. And again we've got 2 negatives, so it becomes minus 5.1 plus 5. So we end up with 0.1, minus 0.1, sorry. So the common difference here is minus 0.1. So that's finding D by subtracting one term from the following term. Always make sure you're doing it the right way around. But sometimes the questions will not give you 2 consecutive terms. So 2 terms in order. So then that's when you need to use this equation here. So remember, this here is the equation, the term, that you're trying to find. The value of any term. It's equal to the value of the first term plus whatever the number of terms is that you're looking for minus 1 multiplied by the difference. So in this case, we're told the first term in a sequence is 2, so you know U1. And the fourth is 11. Find the common difference, the 10th term and the 25th term. So in the first one, you're trying to find the common difference, which is D here. And you should be able to do that by substituting in the values that you have. The 10th term is going to be U10. And you'll need to know the common difference to be able to work that out. The 25th term is going to be U25. So pause the video here and see if you can substitute in values and find out what D is first, and then use that value of D to find the 10th term and the 25th term. Okay, let's have a look at the answers then. I've kept the equation up here so you can keep referring back to it. So finding the common difference. In this case you could use the first term, but it's actually easier to use the fourth term. So we know that the fourth term is 11, so I've substituted in the value of the fourth term here as 11. It's equal to the first term, which is 2. So I've put in 2 here, substitute in place of the first term, plus n, so we're looking at the fourth term here, so n equals 4, minus 1, all multiplied by d, and we don't know what d is yet. So I'm just going to work with the numbers that I've got. 11 equals 2 plus 3d. So I want to get rid of this 2 here because I want to know how much d is. So if I'm adding 2 on this side, I subtract 2 on this side, so it becomes 9 equals 3d. And then we divide 9 by 3, and that will give us D. So 3 equals D. So now I know what the common difference is simply by substituting in the values that we've been given. And then finding the 10th and the 25th term is nice and simple. So U10 first of all equals, well I know the first term is U, U1 is 2, plus 10, because it's the 10th term, minus 1, multiplied by 3, because I found out that D is equal to 3. And if I put all of this into my calculator, I get 29. I've done exactly the same here with 25. So I've got 2 plus 25 minus 1 multiplied by 3 gives me 74. Let me know if you've got any problems with this or if there's anything you're not sure of. Otherwise, let's move on. So, there are times when you don't get 2 consecutive terms and you don't get told what U1 is. And you don't get told what D is. We've only got an equation to help us out and we have 2 missing values. Now we've talked extensively about what we do if we have 2 missing values. In this case we are being given 2 terms. The second term of a sequence is 1 and the 7th is 26 and you need to find the common difference, D. So if we have an equation, we have 2 possible options for that equation and we have 2 missing values, think about what you can do. Pause the video here, substitute those values in and think about what you can do with them. Okay, here's the equation up here. So we know if we have 2 missing values and we are being given 2 options for our equation, we can produce simultaneous equations. So I know that the second term of the sequence is 1. So I've got 1 equals U1, I don't know what the first term is, plus 2 minus 1, D, because it's the second term. So I've got 2 minus 1 multiplied by D, I still don't know what D is. I also know that the 7th term is 26. So I'm going to put in 26 here equals U1 plus 7 minus 1, D. So I end up with 1 equals U1 plus 1D. And 26 equals U1 plus 6D. And so I can minus this equation here from this equation here. So I do 26 minus 1 and that gives me 25. U1 minus U1 gives me nothing. And 6 minus 1 gives me 5D. So I've got 25 equals 5D. So I've just worked upwards in this case rather than downwards. If you're not sure, pause the video here and have a think about what we've just done to get to 25 equals 5D. Then I need to divide by 5 on both sides to give me the value of D. So 25 divided by 5 gives me 5. So 5 is the value of my common difference. I can then substitute that in. The question hasn't asked me to, but I can substitute it in to find my U1 now. So I could pick either of these equations, it wouldn't matter. I've picked the 26 one for some inexplicable reason. 26 equals U1 plus 7 minus 1 times 5. So if I work it all out, U1 was actually minus 4, which makes sense because the second term is 1, the 7th term is 26. So in order to get to 26, I must have added 5 each time, and so I must have minused 5 from this value here to get u1. Okay, moving on. So this is the last thing that we're going to use this equation for here. You can be asked how many terms are in your sequence. So here we have a sequence starts with the terms 6, 10, 14. The final term in the sequence is 50. What is the common difference? First of all, that's going to be nice and simple to work out. And what is the number of terms? So pause here and see if you can work these two things out. Okay, common difference is nice and simple. We can do 10 take away 6 and we get 4. So the common difference in this case is 4. Now, what we know here is that 50 is the final term number. We know 6 is the first term number, so I've replaced u1 with 6. What we don't know is n, and that's what we're going to try and find out. So we've got n minus 1 still in the brackets, all multiplied by 4 because we've just worked out that d is equal to 4. So the first thing I do is get rid of this 6 here because it's kind of getting in my way at the moment. So I can do 50 minus 6 and that gives me 44. Then I've still got this n minus 1 all multiplied by 4. Now, really it's easier to keep the n minus 1 in the brackets, and if I can, divide by this number outside of the brackets. So I'm going to divide this side by 4 and divide this side by 4 as well. And I end up with 11 equals n minus 1. Let's get rid of this minus 1 now by adding 1. So 12 equals n. So there are 12 terms in this sequence. Now obviously you could have also worked that out by thinking, right, the common difference is 4. So I'm just going to keep on adding 4 until I get to the final term here, 50. And that would work just as well, but it's going to take you a little bit more time. Okay. Give a go to the exam style questions on page 298 to 299, questions 1 to 6. Pause the video now. Once you've finished, you can unpause it and you can check your answers. Anything that you don't finish is going to be homework. And here they are. Check your answers, please.